Before we get into these topics, though, hold on. Yeah. Even before we get into these topics, though, episode 30 is a big deal to me because, I hope you never let anyone criticize and compliment you out of what you want to do. It's funny I say compliment and criticize because, when I started doing this a few years ago, this is like the third or fourth iteration. I think the third iteration of my podcast. The first one I think was limited practicality or something like that. And then the next one was turning air into gold. I'll probably revisit that concept in the future. But I was doing some other things at the time as well. Other pieces of content that wasn't just doing podcasts. And I would do a few and people would see it. It could be friends, it could be acquaintances, it could be whoever, just people who know me or even don't know me. And they'd see it and they enjoy it. And they'd compliment me, but they'd also criticize a little bit. And it's good to get constructive criticism, it's necessary. But it wasn't something I was in a place to receive because the criticism was based on comparison. It was a lot of, I know somebody who's doing, and I know they didn't mean anything by it, for the most part, most of them, oh, maybe you should do this. Oh, that's so good. Why don't you do this and everything? And I just got in my head about it and I ended up tinkering with it. I ended up doing too much research and feeling like I had to have some kind of affected voice, feeling like I had to have an angle when I am the angle. I always have been. I've been doing content for, I've been doing it for over 20 years, the beginning of YouTube and before. And I didn't care about how it looked and sounded and everything. It was just me. I knew I was the brand and I get out there and I do my thing. But then I felt like I had to have all this equipment and I had to do it this way and that way and theme songs and this and that. And I really got in my head about it because when people would give me feedback, it was, and I know it was from a place of love because they could see what it could be, right? But a lot of times they would focus too much on that instead of telling me what they felt was good about it. Not that I need, people to blow smoke up my behind, but, blow sunshine up my behind, pause. But it just felt like, especially if people create content themselves or consume a lot of it and a lot of similar content, it just felt like it was always a comparison and it was hard for me to get that out of my head. So I kind of call it complicizing or critiment, it's complimenting, but criticizing. And it didn't always feel constructively critical. And then I would get in my head about it and then I wouldn't do what I set out to do. And I got over that. I don't do that anymore. For the most part. I'm always up for constructive criticism. But the thing is, right now, what I'm doing is simply expressing myself. There's no end game. There's no angle. I'm not trying to make money. I'm not trying to become famous or anything like that. So I'm sitting in my corner and I'm sharing what went through my head over the past few days. Could it be prettier? Yeah. Could it sound nicer? Yeah. Could it be slicker and could it have all these little production values? Yeah, but that's not what we're doing. Rod is doing Rod. If that's what you want to see, somebody else is doing them, or you can do you. So yeah, episode 30. First thing up, what would you cut a finger off for? I'm asking that because I was watching Joe Rogan podcast and I watch it a lot. I do. I can't even lie. I mean, I feel conflicted about it, but I do. So I was watching Joe Rogan's podcast and he said there was a guy on there who was into aliens, and he said he would cut a finger off if he could find out the truth about if aliens are here. And I was thinking about that. I was like, you know what? I probably would too. And then Joe was like, The messed up thing about that is if later on, soon after, they just everybody just finds out, and now you don't have a finger, and and I was like, yeah, that would suck. That would suck. But I was thinking, like, if I knew that I would never find out, like, before I die, I probably would cut off a finger. I probably cut off a finger to know, like, so many things as far as, conspiracies and things that we don't know about. I'd give a finger or two to know these things, Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, Bermuda Triangle, pyramids. I mean, so many things. I probably would give a finger, but I wouldn't for like $1 billion. I wouldn't really, I wouldn't for like those types of luxuries, but for like that kind of knowledge. And of course I would to like save someone in my family. I wonder where the line gets drawn. Like I'd give a finger, for like my good friends, if it would save their life. But it's like I'd probably go down the line and be like, yeah. Okay, yeah. I gotta think about it. Nah. I guess that's how you can tell how good your friends are to you. Who would you sacrifice a finger for? Where is that line drawn in your friend group? And the funny thing is, like, yesterday I was substituting a class. I was teaching a socio-emotional learning class, and we were talking about the different categories of friends: best friends, close friends. I forgot what the third one was, and then acquaintances. And maybe I should have taught it like that. I should have been like, in the middle of the circle, best friends, people you would definitely sacrifice a finger for. Right outside of that, close friends, people you are pretty sure you'd sacrifice a finger for. And then right outside of that, people you probably wouldn't. It'd have to be really ideal circumstances. And then the acquaintances you definitely wouldn't ever. That's how I'm teaching that next time. Oh, what else we got here? You ever realize, like, there's someone it's like a celebrity, or maybe even a person in your life, you already convince yourself you don't like. Like, I'm not a fan of that person or that thing even. And then you realize you are. It's like, I don't know, you would think that you know who you like and who you're a fan of. But for me, sometimes it just occurs to me out of nowhere. Like, I'll be watching something. I'll tell you why I was thinking about this. I was watching the UFC fight. It was Paddy the Baddy against Justin Gaethje for the interim lightweight title. And I have always felt that Paddy's had way too much privilege. And he has. We know how the UFC goes. We know how Dana White is. And I just like haven't been into that character. I was like, it's a new kind of Conor McGregor, and going to shoot him to the moon and give him the rocket and everything. He doesn't deserve it. And over the course of the fight, I realized I do kind of like Paddy. I kind of like his style. I like how he carries himself. And I realized I don't like Justin Gaethje as much as I thought I did. Because I feel like he's a bit MAGA, like all of those UFC fighters are, most of them. But yeah, he's a little more to that vibe than I really picked up on in the past for some reason. And maybe Paddy is too, but the way he, like, the grit that he showed and kind of just his vibe, I was like, I could get with this. There's something in my blackness that relates to. There's something in blackness and Irishness that connects. That he is Irish, right? Paddy's Irish. It's something that connects. That always has. And we have our issues, of course. The first police in New York were Irish and whatever, but also, they say the this is of Europe, and all that. I don't know about all that, but I've always gotten along well with Iris. There's just been a connection there. But yeah, people all of a sudden you're like, you always thought you didn't like them, and then you're like, you know what, I do like them. Then the opposite happens. I've always been like, CM Punk has always been one of my favorite wrestlers. He still is one of my favorite wrestlers ever. But only recently I realized that he gets on my nerves. That he's still one of my favorite wrestlers, but I just hate hearing him say best in the world all the time. That can't be. It doesn't make sense for that to be your catchphrase. Like, it's so generic. They're wrestlers. Everyone thinks they're the best in the world. And, there's no one who looks like they received the championship. Now we're talking about wrestling, guys, not real fighting. Not UFC, which is barely real fighting at times. It's real fighting, but it's not. It has way more rules and it's way more orchestrated than we think. But anyway, there's no wrestler who is more protected by plot armor on his way to his titles and his main event matches than CM Punk, because wrestlers are smaller these days, so he doesn't look as small as he used to, but he just doesn't look believable against the monsters that he's always fighting. The Roman Reignses and the Drew McIntyres and the Brock Lesnars and stuff like that. Like, amongst these monsters, I just can't buy the constant, I'm the best in the world. He's not a high flyer. He's not. He's technical to an extent, but he's not like a technical wrestler like Bret Hart, Chris Benoit, Daniel Bryan, or even Eddie Guerrero, So like, what is his thing? He's not like a tough guy like Stone Cold, like a brawler or whatever. So like, what is his thing? But I love CM Punk though. So why are old men's worth so tied up in Michael Jordan being better than LeBron James? For the record, I do think Jordan is the GOAT. I think he's number one. And I think LeBron's number two. I think Jordan is the NBA GOAT. I think Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is the basketball GOAT of all time when you consider all levels of basketball. I think Jordan is the GOAT of the NBA, but I will accept someone thinking it's LeBron also. Just those two, okay? But I mean, other men my age, they just like, there's no conversation where you can just feel them engage in that conversation in a way that defines their worth almost than them telling you why Michael Jordan is better than LeBron James. But the weird thing about it is, okay, I can be arguing this with someone and I will concede to them that Michael Jordan is better. If not better, he has the greater NBA career. But it's not enough for them. They have to also let you know that LeBron is not as good as people think and that he doesn't deserve to be mentioned in the same sentence, which doesn't make sense because of all his records and because of his expectations and still fulfilling those expectations. And again, I will concede he's not the greater NBA player compared to Michael Jordan, but it's weird when that they won't accept that. That's not enough. They'll be like, oh, but they'll list all the wrong things about LeBron. And I'm like, yeah, okay. But can you admit that he is probably worthy of other people feeling like he's the greatest player ever? That's the thing. You can have your stance about something and feel strongly about it, and also feel like other people's stances are logical. You can be like, I totally disagree with it, and I will deconstruct your argument, but you have a basis for what you're saying. Men over a certain age, though, they do not feel like that about the Jordan versus LeBron debate. Jordan being completely superior and LeBron bowing at his feet needs to be the reality for them. It's very important. It's very important for some reason. Have you ever panic applied for a job, or maybe an internship or a fellowship or something like that? I panic applied for for a job recently. I'm studying counseling. I'm transitioning into counseling, and counseling position opened, and I panic applied for the job. Now, it's not a job I wouldn't do, and I wouldn't say I'm completely ready or qualified for it, but I could do it. But I kind of felt like, I don't know if this thing is going to be open in the future, and I should apply for it while it is, and then just try to figure it out after that. But I was never really comfortable, and I didn't have to panic. I'm not in a situation where I have to panic. I'm not in a situation financially and otherwise where I have to panic, but I just induced panic in myself. I was like, I should apply for this job while it's open. Why did I panic apply? I applied for it and I didn't get it. Or it looks like I didn't get it. But, and I feel relieved. Now, it'll be weird if out of nowhere they tell me, they're like, look, people we have, or the person we have can't do it. We want to pivot to you, because then I have to make a decision. But that's why you shouldn't panic apply, because even if you don't get the job or whatever it is, and you weren't quite sure about doing it to begin with, you may get it another way. That has happened before. And then now you have to act on the fact that you panic applied. You ever panic applied to something? Maybe you panic asked someone out to accompany you somewhere. Maybe you panic bought something. You're like, what, I need 2 outfits, because what if I should buy 2? Oh man. Speaking of wrestling, this wrestler R-Truth, he said, I was watching him on this show called Unreal, which peels back the curtain in wrestling, breaks the fourth wall, and tells you what happens behind the scenes. And he's a wrestler. He's been a wrestler for a long time. He's in his 50s, well respected, and he got let go, or there was a little controversy. His boss said he didn't get let go. He felt like he did. But anyway, when he came back, he noticed all of the love he was getting from all the fans and everything like that. And he looks back on his career. He looks back on just all the love he gets. He's not the top wrestler. He's not someone most of you would know. But he's had a very unique career, lasting when people who you do know and were on top couldn't last anymore. And he's still around. And he said something that really spoke to me. He was like, why ask why? He's like, I'm in this position. It was when he came back, he was in a really good program, making good money, getting a lot of views, everything. And he was like, why ask why? And that resonated with me, because I'm the type of person who feels like there needs to be a strong reason for my success, for any admiration, for any good that comes to me. And he was just like, what? I'm not going to overthink that. He's like, I'm blessed. I'm fortunate. I don't need to ask why, because it is what it is. And I need to adopt that approach, because when I don't enjoy life like I need to. I'm always feeling like I didn't earn something, and I need to prove that I deserve something, and I need to be more like R-Truth. Why ask why? It is what it is. People, I will visit people's countries, and they don't act the same way when we talk about visiting each other's countries, right? So I will visit someone's country, maybe it's in South America, Europe, Asia, whatever like that, and they will be, I'll tell them where, and they'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, that's more of the touristy part. That's not the real, they'll be a little condescending but polite. Oh, that's not the real Netherlands, that's not the real Vietnam. It was cute you went there though, you visited. But if they visited New York, this is 100% of the time, they'll be like, oh yeah, I went to I went to Cat's Deli. I'm only saying Cat's Deli because a brother from New Orleans was saying that, and this is actually not directed at him, but they were like, "Oh, I went to I saw the site where the World Trade Center was. I went to the Empire State Building. I mean, they'll list all the touristy stuff, you know. I went to Times Square, was amazing, this and that." And I'm never condescending to them. I'm never like, yeah, I mean, you could have just seen that in a million movies and everything. You know, I'm like, you didn't go up to the heights. You know, you didn't go out to Queens, and you know, you didn't see downtown Brooklyn, and you didn't see Flatbush. You didn't see, you know, you didn't go in the area around Yankee Stadium and everything like that. I don't tell them that, but when I visit their country, they're like, "Oh, you didn't, you know, that's cute. You went, oh, you saw the touristy part of Portugal and stuff," you know, which is not the case. I was in Portugal, but anyway, you know, this is how they act, and it's a thing. I think Europeans, not just Europeans, but especially Europeans, but other cultures, they feel like the US doesn't have much culture. So, and even New York, they're like, yeah, it's famous and stuff, but it doesn't have much culture. So it's okay. Like, it's okay that we don't experience anything besides the touristy part. But you really missed out if you just saw the touristy part. But me going there, got a hot dog, you know, got a hot dog on 34th Street. What else did I need to see? You know, what else we got here? Day, month, year format. What format of dates do you prefer? I always liked the month, day, year format, which recently I saw like this graphic and I'm like, oh, it made so much sense. They were like, that's the worst format because you should either go from largest to smallest, which is year, month, day, or smallest to largest, which is day, month, year. Trying to keep it all track in my head. But actually, my favorite now is it's day, month, year, but I like to write it as number, month abbreviation, year. I don't know, it's something about it. It helps me keep track of dates better. Like I'll write like 9-Feb-2026. That's my favorite. What's your favorite way of writing the date? Episode 30, Ride Doing Ride. Y'all take it easy. Peace.